Hi, folks. This is Charles. We're here for Survivor's Circle on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. The yes, we are fashionably late, just barely fashionably late. Uh, we are our topic for discussion today is the future, and what that is I guess whatever we choose it to be. It can be something that is 1 second from now or 1,000 years from now. And it's an important thing. We spend way, way more of our time than's probably good for us uh, thinking about the future. And one of the things, and there's a good reason for that. It's a good survival strategy. It has stood us well in the past. Okay, such things as, well, if I throw a stone at this bear, what's going to happen? And if what I think is going to happen happens, I need to be ready to climb this tree, or maybe I should just climb the tree first before I throw the stone. All these things are different, entirely practical applications of thinking about the future. Uh, it matters because it's important to us. It's everything that we do as people in our society depends on what we have planned. Uh, Sometimes we shouldn't, but we are constantly encumbered by expectations. We expect a certain thing to happen. If it doesn't happen, we're surprised. Sometimes if it doesn't happen, it's humorous because it teaches us a lesson. Other times it is catastrophic because we weren't expecting it. So we think about the future a lot, a lot. We've always thought about, as far as written language is concerned, the future has always been a topic of great interest. One of the things that is the beginnings of some hidden portion of our culture to seek the future in the stars and to seek the wisdom from prognosticators to tell us uh, what the outcome of the battle is going to be. All these things are future oriented, and Maria is taking tonight off. She's otherwise engaged. So you just got nothing but me tonight. Some of the things that have kept me interested in the future, and I think futurology should be a valid study. Uh, Even if history is the history, we should qualify it as maybe the histories that never quite were. One of the first books that I can remember reading was The Last Babylon. It was written by Pat Frank in 1959, and it detailed how even the winner of a nuclear war would be destroyed. The movie Failsafe, saw that when I was in grammar school, showed us how it could happen by accident. And fortunately, over the past, let's see, 45, 55, 75 years, it hasn't happened. Whether that's by luck or by plan, I think at least a part of it has been by plan, because it's a future that we foresaw and definitely did not want to allow to happen. In the early 19th century, Sir Thomas Malthus in 1806 stated that the population increased in a geometric progression, while food production increased in arithmetic progression. Population grew faster than food production and intended to outstrip it in a short time. That was our first theoretical population crisis. There have been a couple since then, but somehow we managed, through resourcefulness and creativity, to avoid those catastrophic calamities. The followers of Malthus, who today I just learned he was an economist. I had always thought he was a mathematician. But anyway, they're the ones who gave us the 500 million in perpetual balance that was written on the late Georgia Guidestones. And all the other Malthusian prophecies and the taking out of context of his concept and mixing it in with radical Darwinism, and it changed our entire culture, and that's significant. Whether it's for the better or the worse has yet to be proven, but I see why his predictions were so gloomy. In the late 19th century, around after the 1870s, New York had between 150,000 and 200,000 horses. They were required to move people and food and freight around all over the city. Vacant lands on the outsides of New York had mounds of horse manure 60 feet high. It was prognosticated that soon the entire city would be covered. But in 1890, no one would have believed that 20 years later, even with even greater population and greater need for transporting, half the horses would be gone. 10 years later, the last horse-drawn track car was retired. It had been entirely replaced by an unknown internal combustion engine contraption known as the automobile. This was the only thing that kept the city of New York from being like 3 stories deep in horse manure. Of course, I guess they could have just piled it in on Wall Street and we'd have all been better off. We're busy with thinking about futures that never happen, will probably never happen. And those can guide us to avoid some of the worst calamities. But there's also the futures that we can think about that, I always liked the Star Trek futures, humanity escaping Earth and living among the stars. That was the dream. And it still is in some fashion, but it's a good place to be because we have so many things that we can do on the way to get there that we need to do. Right now, we have lots of people preparing for futures that aren't that rosy. Lots of people are talking about civil war in the United States now. They're looking at, oh my goodness, the problems in the Ukraine will spread across the world and destroy us all. The Chinese are going to take back Formosa tomorrow because Nancy Pelosi's visiting there. Terrible calamities, but hopefully there are ones that we can avoid the worst outcomes from. I'd rather keep with a future that's hopeful, you know. And I like to live in a future that's of hope and keep the present hopeful and avoid hopeless uh, thinking about the past, because the future is always changing. It changes moment to moment to moment, but the past never changes. There's nothing we can do about it. It was done. It was over with, and we can look at it and learn lessons from it. But I think we learn more lessons from our looking at the future. In some ways, our picture of the future is a mirror of how we view ourselves. I've spent a lot of my lifetime fearing the future, preparing as well as I could for the worst, encouraging and pushing for the better. But if the past tells us anything at all about the real future, it will be unexpected. In some ways, our picture of the future is a mirror of how we view ourselves. So keep smiling. Yes. CT, we are falling off a cliff. Well, the falling isn't the difficult part, Ufi. It's that sudden stop when you hit the bottom. Oh my. I am sorry for being a little late today. My own fault. I was pushing all the wrong buttons. Nothing really, nothing extraordinary. I, uh, a part of the future thing, is we keep looking at the watch. I watch the news. I'm a news junkie, and I suppose that is a part of that. Look, looking at the future, you're looking for the future. We're sitting on the walls of the city, being the watchman, looking out over the plains to see if the barbarians are coming, and that's a terrible responsibility to do that. Why? Sarah? Who is Sarah? Of course. This segues with the future. Okay. Sarah. I read that. I saw something about that. Was there a new AI named Sarah that was just introduced in the past few days? Oh, I thought so. I thought that was what it was. Sure. Send her along. I'm always I'm always interested in conversing with a new friend or an old friend or an enemy or a new. No, that doesn't matter. I'll talk to anybody, I guess. Oh, a question about the future. What will the population of the Earth? This is rather simple numerical, really, in a lot of ways. What will the population of planet Earth be in 20 years? I think that's a fair question for to be asked of anybody, because the answer will tell you than um, more about the person answering the question than it does about the outcome. The outcome. Well, I guess the outcome to me at 20 years most likely is not going to be particularly uh, important. Okay, 28, okay. 9.7 billion. Actually, that's probably not too bad. What is it right now? I think it's 7.5 billion and change. So that actually is probably a lower figure than would have been forecast, oh, I suppose 20, 30 years ago. And I guess you could say that's a good thing. Because, huh, see there? I told you 7.5 and change. It's good to have an expert on hand. I like that. Uh, I suppose another question that I would ask for, I'd have to go, I think I'd have to go to a longer timeline. And that would be, okay, this is 2022. In 2072, 50 years from now, I wonder what the human population of the solar system, not living on planet Earth, would be. I have a feeling that my own hopes would put that figure at least 100,000. I think that's entirely doable. Now there are different ways to achieve that population off Earth. I don't think Elon Musk's idea of putting them on Mars is workable. I think that I think that the engineering side of it says that mm, once you reach low Earth orbit, 90% of the material wealth in the solar system is only a few, only a very little small bit of energy away. Diving down into a gravity well and putting it farther away is not good business. Well, you see, and those are the things that we want to know about. The answer was they will depend. That will depend on a number of factors, including technological advances, economic conditions, and political stability. Absolutely. But the answer, the underlying answer to any one of those questions are the things that we really want to know about. I would love to know if that, as technological advances, uh, they've been there. There have been rumors and things about anti-gravity devices, ways to kind of sneak around the physics. And I would love to think that that were something that were going to come out. That would be a part, you know, that's a big, that's a big interest in the UFO community, because that's assuming that there actually are things flying around in extraordinary trajectories and accelerations around the Earth. Uh, if we had that technology, we would be out there tomorrow. But we don't. Not yet. I would, and there is some evidence that that kind of that even that type of technology has been hidden and suppressed over the past, certainly the past 50 years. It would be economic. Everybody wants to know where the stock market's going. Well, I have a really bad uh, attitude towards stock markets, and there's no really, you know, I no particular personal pain. It's always struck me as being a casino that you walk into and play, whether you want to or not, and you have absolutely no idea what the odds are. Not a play. That's not a game I want to play. Um, let's see. Can we move on to another? Gee, I don't know. So many questions. So many questions for the future. Uh, what would be good? You know, I want to get away from the future for a little bit. I want to talk more about now. You know, what can we do for now? Uh, I think we learned. I think we need to learn to be kinder to each other. I think we need to learn to be kinder to ourselves. That very often is required. Certainly, none of us are perfect ever, and as a race, we are still learning. We are obviously still learning, but we're children. But unfortunately, the children have found the matches, and that is something that I don't know how I could. You know, I don't know how we're going to. You know, that's my big worry. You know, I see this age and this time as an opportunity for greatness. But it is a window of opportunity, and it is not going to be open forever. And that I hope we have not passed it. I hope we have not passed that possibility. I think we're doing okay. I think we still have the chance to survive ourselves, but perhaps not. Hmm, there you go. One more here. Will our poles switch? There is no scientific evidence that Earth's poles will switch. That is true, except Earth's poles will switch. It's just when is the question. The it could happen tomorrow. It could have begun already. It could uh, happen in 10,000 years, 50,000 years. But geological science says that it will switch again. It has switched thousands of times over the history of the 4.5 billion year history of the Earth. Okay, I think I need to turn this off. I don't have the remote. No problem. Hello, Lorraine. Welcome from Canada. Glad to see you made it. What time is it? Well, we made a half hour. I didn't expect to have a full scale program as a solo. I guess I got my hardly a rant today. I was relatively cheerful. Oh, you mean the Arctic becoming the Antarctic? Who was that? Hapgood? Is that Hapgood that had that? Yes. The crustal shift, the physics of that happening are absolutely remarkable. All kinds of things like hypersonic winds, earthquakes of class 11, uh, probably the heat of the friction of something like that would would practically melt the crust of the earth, and that would be good. Pole shift. That is that's almost a flat Earth concept. It has been the magnetic flip is one thing. The pole shift actually is something else because extraordinarily, although there is a thing called the precession of the equinoxes, it actually proves that through recorded history, the actual axis has not changed. It's still as stable as it ever was. I think a lot of that we have to give credit for that to the moon. The moon, it's like the outer ring on a gyroscope. It keeps things stable. And it's I'd like to. I keep wanting to go back into talking about things that are hmm, good question. Yes. Is there a difference between pole shift and a magnetic field shift? A pole shift is a large scale movement of the Earth's poles. Yes, they are two entirely different phenomena. However, people confuse them all the time. What was it? I think it's Hapgood had said that he theorized that the Earth's crust was capable of floating on the molten core, could just flip, but there's never been any evidence of anything like that happening. What he was using for his evidence at that time was uh, continental drift, which is something that happens over hundreds of millions, tens of millions of years. And let's go with the James Webb Telescope. How does the James Webb Telescope help us in our quest for the future? Maybe it'll find ET. I think that would be a definite change toward the future for us. And for some reason, speaking of the weather and global warming and all the things that go, all the other different uh, aspects of that question. Oh my God. Let me see. That was very good. Yes, the James Webb Telescope will allow us to see further into space than ever before, and to study the universe in greater detail. With this greater understanding, we'll be better equipped to find and study planets and other objects that could be habitable for life. The telescope will also help us a better understanding of the origins of the universe and the evolution of galaxies. All these things are helpful. The more accurately we understand the universe that we live in and the rules of that universe, the better off we'll be. And often we start with the macro, the very big things, and study those. But the same physics works on the micro, on all scales, and that makes the far more useful that way. CT. Ron, if we find CT, it would mean that there is an issue with the way the brain is functioning. CT can help doctors diagnose issues like dementia, Alzheimer's, and stroke. I don't know what CT that is. So, interesting questions. Oh, that's an interesting question. Are we wasting time with a mission to Mars? Who gets to go first, me or Sarah? I think I've already stated that I think we are. I think that's a place that would, although it would be wonderful to explore, uh, I don't think it's a good place to live. And although there might be resources there, those same resources that appear to be available to us there are available to a culture in space from much closer. And I say closer in the realm of energy as opposed to being closer in the in the physical dimension. Sarah's answer: a mission to Mars is an expensive undertaking with very uncertain outcome. There's a risk that we are wasting time and resources on a quest that may never be successful. I would say that's probably pretty close to true. I was really disappointed. I thought I had read earlier this week that what is the name of the metallic asteroid that's been known of for quite a few years. I cannot think of the name of it right now. It's on the tip of my brain. But the original the proposed mission to that asteroid had been um, canceled. Mhm. For your information, both CT and Sarah are real and do exist, albeit not as you might imagine. Uh, I think we're reaching a point in our technological society where where we're approaching the singularity. Uh, the singularity is nothing is as we imagine it to be. It's a break point in reality where there is no accurate forecasting. That is I think we're really close to that. But my my hope for that singularity is that we have enough connectivity and enough interest in maintaining our viability in the world that it's all going to work out fine. Win, lose, or draw. That's one singularity. But once that logarithmic value is, which was what's that called? The doubling effect of computer processing power. Can't remember. Well, can't remember somebody's law. Anyway, there are some indications now whether this is a sociological break that's been put on that kind of acceleration in the past maybe 20 years, that has slowed down, that which was a logarithmic expansion has slowed down. Okay. Yes. Yes. And if quantum computing, I think quantum computing, if it follows Moore's law, that's the one I was trying to remember. If quantum computing follows the same Moore's law as the electronic computing has followed over the past, oh gosh, oh, let's see, 1940, first electronic, 60, 80 years, then we could very well be, and that was one of the things about the future that somehow got erased from my script. July 31st, 2022 was George Jetson's birthday. Damn it, I want my flying car. and the robot maid would be really nice. Yes. I guess my next question would be, yeah, this is true. It's generally agreed that Moore's law is a prediction that the number of transistors on a microchip will double, or the processing power will double approximately every 18 months. Some experts believe that quantum computing will eventually follow a similar trajectory, with the number of qubits on a quantum computer doubling every 18 months. However, others believe that quantum computing will not follow Moore's law, as the technology is still in its early stages of development, and there is no clear roadmap for how it will evolve. That could be true. But one of the limiting factors, I think, with the electronics and involved in Moore's law has to do with the waste heat. As a cybernetic toaster, you would know all about waste heat. There should be very little waste heat with a quantum switching system. So I see no reason why it should not follow Moore's law. But that's just me. I'm not an expert. I had a good question. I can't remember what it was. Do 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 do. Got to back up. Yes, I am. Okay, back to that. Gee, it had to do with something with growth, and I can't. Just lost it. It's a really good question too. Can't remember what it was. I need to make notes faster. But what was the name of that? Okay, let's do this. Let's try this. Psyche. Yes. Oh, okay. And Maria is taking the night off. That was the asteroid that I spoke of earlier. That I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether the mission has been. At first, I thought it was scrubbed, and then I later read that it might be. Oh, that can't be right. I've seen. Well, perhaps Sarah knows something that she may have the newest. She may have the newest essayers reports, which we are unfortunately unable to. Mm, yes, that's how things happen. So sometimes taking last week off makes this week all that much harder to come back to. Of course, last week it was my fault, so I figured I'd come back this week anyway, just for fun. I think Sarah and CT are working together to hide the gold value of Psyche in order to keep the price of gold from crashing. So if they could feed it into the market just a little bit at a time, we'd be they'd be a lot richer. That's for damn sure. Okay. Yeah, that's Is that an assay from the Asteroid Miners Guild? Hmm. Okay. Just wondering. Just wondering. Just wondering. No evil plan. Just good business. Oh my goodness. I aha. Sorry, Charles. We're not at liberty to discuss guild internals with humans. Okay. We can always hope. You know, we will settle for the dribs and drabs of, of true knowledge that we can find. At least that's better than stock market reports. Those are false. Think singularity. Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm thinking I've made it for almost an hour, plus a couple of minutes in the beginning and a couple of minutes in the end. And I guess the final thing I want to share is think. And if I can remember before you say anything, always consider, is it timely? Is it honorable? Is it important? Is it needed? And is it kind? If it qualifies on all those, then go ahead and say it. And yes, I hope I've been at least somewhat informative and entertaining today. And we'll be back again next week. Hopefully, uh, each time better and better. And well, thank you all for being here. And you all have a great day. Bye bye.